Gary.
Nicholas Vince, how is it going?
It's going very well. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
That's my pleasure.
Oh wow. So yeah, man. We're here to talk about I Am Monsters, and what a remarkable achievement it is. So, when did you decide that it was going to be a one man show rather than like your normal format of a documentary?
So it came from when I was patron of the London Horror Festival for about 5 years. So that means I think I started in 2014. And the London Horror Festival then was the largest and longest running festival of live horror performance. And basically, it was a fringe theatre. So I got to see all these wonderful shows in small theatres above pubs with about 60 people in the
Mhm.
audience, and where you can almost reach out and touch the actors, and got to see these wonderful one-person shows. And I just thought, yeah, I can do this. There's something I want to talk about here. I had all the stories from behind the sets of Hellraiser, Hellbound, and Nightbreed, but really wanted to explore more about monsters and so on. So that was the inspiration for the whole thing.
That there is brilliant, man. And was there a bit of you like wanting to get away from behind the mask?
Yes, well, that's really astute. Yes, I guess there was, because it's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's
Hmm.
also totally egotistical, I'll be very honest, because this is me talking about me.
But it's
But
honest.
yeah,
It's
sorry, go.
honest. So
Yes,
it's not
yeah, thank you.
egotistical. It's the truth, really, to be honest. So it's not egotistical. It's just you had a good run. And, well, I say a good run, it wasn't a very good start, but it ended up a good run for you.
Yes, thank you. I think that's what I wanted to share. I think the idea of, as you say, being very honest. In fact, I was talking to um, a director at Fright Fest after we'd done the initial shooting, and I was thinking, there are other stories, and I don't want to make it into a kind of, it's part confessional. It was always going to be part confessional, but I don't want to make it into a kind of a psychological thing.
Hmm.
He said, "No, you've got to be honest. You've got to tell people and tell all the nasty bits. That's what people want to hear."
Yes.
And those are the important bits. So I think, yeah, it was kind of scary, and still is. But I haven't said all that. People have been very kind, very
Hmm.
enthusiastic. I've been blown away by. In fact, I was at a screening in Dorking, just south of London, on Saturday nights and chatting with people, and they were all saying. In fact, one of the guys there, he said, "Oh, yeah, I thought I was coming to see a film which was just the behind the scenes stories, but this is so much more," and that was great. And I had a long chat with him afterwards, because giving me a lift back to the station, and it was really
Yeah.
interesting to see how much it had touched him.
It's sort of like your format. It's important because you go on a lot about your inspiration from, like, say, Universal monsters, without realizing, that the Cenobites and Nightbreed and stuff like that are pretty much the next generation of monsters. So I think that's really important, that the Cenobites and stuff have that effect, that they are now just as popular as, like, Bram, like Dracula, the Wolfman. you know
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you. I've not heard it expressed like that before, and that's really lovely to hear.
well, that's
Yes,
that's
I think that.
the truth.
Thank you. Yeah,
No
yeah.
problem. And would you consider the Cenobites, like, you always go on about the tragedy behind the monster, like Frankenstein being a child, Wolfman
Mm.
getting infected, trying to save somebody. Is there any, like, sorrow behind the Cenobites, or is it they're just pure out to get you?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that I mentioned in the film is, of course, actually, I don't go into it that much, but when I was told, yeah, we for Hellbound, we were told, yeah, the Cenobites are reverting back into human. I think, great, I'm going to be seen at long last. I get to be
Yes.
seen. And then the next thing I hear is, oh yeah, no, you're going to become a child. It's like, what? No,
Yes.
no, no, no. I was so upset. It was kind of like, no.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but over the years, I really kind of appreciated because this is the idea, and this is something I talk about in a short story called Prayers of Desire, which I'm republishing in my third volume of short stories early next year.
Brilliant.
Uh, there is a tragedy. I think, we get to know about Captain Spencer, I think his name is
Hmm.
Pinhead, and we get to see a bit about his study. So it's not, but the whole idea that someone who looks like a boy ends up in hell and grows up in hell because he's a child, but it's an adult. Chatter is definitely an adult when you get to meet him in Hellraiser. There is a lot of tragedy, and that's kind of what I talk about in Prayers of Desire, just why and what it is. I think, and I wrote another short story recently for another collection about they are about desire, and desires tend to make us vulnerable. If you're not aware of your own desires, that can make you very vulnerable because you don't understand why you do what you do. Your desires can be dark and lead you down dangerous paths, etc. So I think the Cenobites are very definitely about desire, and I think that's kind of what I wanted, and that can be very tragic.
Hmm. And what's you're talking about your short stories going to get published? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's going to be as I say, the short story I'm thinking about. It's called Prayers of Desire. That's going to be the title of the volume. Quite when it'll probably be February, March of next year that I'm actually going to get it all together. I've been talking about this third volume for years, well over a decade, in fact, since I
Right.
last uh, published the collection of short stories. Um, but I'm really carving out time now. Once we've gone through this wonderful experience of the release of I Am Monsters, and getting to chat with folks like yourself, uh, then once that's done, then my decks will be mostly clear because I'm going to be doing less traveling next year than I
Hmm.
think. Uh,
Do you plan to travel with your stories?
no, I haven't. One thing I am looking at, and we're going to have to see how this works out. One of the things that a couple of people have been saying, have been complimenting me on my voice
Hmm.
through I Am Monsters, and I thought, yeah, it's about time I really just sat down and I'm investigating the technology required to actually do my own audio stuff. So I think it would be really fun to do my own audio versions of these
Yeah.
things. But that's getting it published first, then looking at the audio stuff later on. But there are actually other things I would love to do, like there are poems that I studied when I was a teenager for my English language that mean a lot to me. Are the sonnets of Shakespeare, some of those are really moving, and it's
Mhm.
like I would love to have a go at this, just for fun, put them out there, see what people think.
Mhm.
So yeah, but
Well, I
it's
think
like
that's a
all
great
these.
idea because, like I was going to say that there is a very Shakespearean sort of feel to I Am Monsters, and I think it's wonderful. And as you say, it's to do with the voice. The voice, you have to have the voice, and you do have the nice, I don't know, posh English accent, to get away with it. So I'd
my,
listen to
my
you
mu-
read Shakespeare all day, man.
My mother would be so pleased to hear you say this, because this was what my accent was really one of those dichotomies when I was growing up, because, and I mention it in the film, when I was a teenager, I went to a school in Crawley, which was one of the satellite towns where a whole load of South Londoners were moved out of London after the Second World War
Hmm.
for housing, so that people would have, because so much was destroyed during the Blitz. So basically, I went to a school where that normal accent, the usual accent was a South London accent, where the people tend to talk like that, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
jaw hardly moves. And and speaking as I do was very noticeable, and one of the things that marked me out for bullying. So yeah, my mother would be very pleased to hear that.
So, this is actually something else that was I had to sort of touch on a little bit about the bullying. Back in your
Mm.
high school days, and you said you were like the second most bullied person.
Mm.
Is there any bit of you that wants to meet those bullies again and say, like, sort of like, fuck you, I am the man behind the mask. I am the person that your kids watch on TV and you don't even know it, you know?
It's interesting. I don't honestly. I think now because I'm more so distant from it, I think there's definitely a time that I would have felt that. One of the things I came across after the film was completed, there was an article on Radio 4, I think it was, about bullying, and somebody was explaining the reason why, one of the reasons why people bully is because they are not in control at home.
Hmm.
There is some part of their life where they do not feel in control. And by picking on somebody weaker, perceived as weaker, they exert a form of control.
Hmm.
And I think I found that absolutely fascinating. And I'd never really thought and I think, one of the main bullies, I didn't mention this in the film, but one of the main bullies, a guy called Neil, he was an orphan. And it happened tragically. So he was in foster care. I think he may have had a sister as well, a younger sister as well. So I do not know what was going on
Hmm.
in his life at the time that would lead him to do this. But I can understand why that would be. So it'd be as I just I've no idea what I would feel.
Hmm.
Honestly, I know what I would like to feel, and it's like, yeah, I'm grown up now. This is all part of me. This is not gonna. But in the moment, how would I feel? Really not sure.
Hmm. It's understandable.
Mm,
What else did
mm,
I want to ask you? Yes, about the night that you actually met Clive Barker, the party.
mm.
Take me through the night and how you and Clive actually met. What were you doing? How did you end up in this party together?
I see. My memory. I do not know how I got invited. I suspect it was via Simon Bamford because Simon was working with Clive at that stage. That's Simon who plays Butterball in Hellraiser.
Mhm.
Because he was part of the dog company. And the party was definitely in Crouch End, where I'd spent 3 years at drama school, and I was working in an art shop. So although I wasn't living in London at the time, I definitely had connections and so on. Um, it's hard to remember. I was drunk. I know I was
Yeah,
drunk.
yeah, yeah.
I know I was drunk.
Yeah.
Um, and I can be honest about this now. I think nobody's going to be harmed. It wasn't Clive I was interested in. There was definitely somebody else I was interested
Right.
in at the party. So I didn't, and yeah, I was drunk. That's all I can say. Um, made it behaved atrociously as one does. So I'd obviously talked to Clive, and there was definitely a connection there. And then he said, would you like to come and model for me? Which I did. I think within a week. Within my memory is the party was on the Saturday, and like the Wednesday or Thursday of the following week, I was round at Clive's posing for him, and he sketched me in oils. I've got the oil pastel at home still. In fact, it's just about to be reframed and put up in my study.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, it was that. It was just that kind of thing. And I said we definitely kind of bonded over a shared love of horror,
Mhm.
and
Brilliant. What else was I going to say to you about the release of I Am Monsters, the premiere and Fright Fest, how it went, and is there plenty of copies still left because it is limited edition?
it is limited. There are copies left. I don't know the exact number at the moment. It's been steady, and we're just going to do a big push to because it's 500 in total. We're just about to do a big advertising push because obviously we're approaching the last posting days for Christmas.
Hmm.
And if people decide to go for the dedication as well, then that adds a couple of extra days because I've got
Hmm.
to then send off. I've got to do the signing, get it in the post, so it
Hmm.
gets to Stuart Spark, who's doing all the distribution stuff. So yes, there are definitely copies available. You're not too late to get one of the limited edition, and
I think I'm going to get one for my little brother. My little brother is a huge Hellraiser fan, and he can't believe that I'm talking to you. So, can you say hello to Keith, my little brother?
Keith, hi, hi,
He's going to
lovely,
love
lovely to virtually meet you.
that. Yeah, he's going to absolutely lose his shit now over that. I'm telling you. So there was another thing, like the makeup in the Chatterer, and you were referred to on the call sheet as "poor bastard," right? Right, which is brilliant. Everybody seemed to be having such a good time, apart from you. Really.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, I do remember it. I don't. All I remember is the person who I spoke to called me poor bastard was Bob Keane, who with Jeff Portis was the head of Image Animation, and I just remember him putting his fist in front of my face like that and saying, "That's how much you're going to see,
Oh my
going to be
god.
able to see." And of course, as it turned out, I could see even less.
Mhm.
So it was it is that kind of dichotomy thing because mentioned, I had a lot of fun because I was working with these young talented, I think they were all young men
Mhm.
in those days. It wasn't until we got Nightbreed that there were actually some females
Mhm.
as part of image animation. The I suppose the thing that is different from normal acting for us actors who do prosthetic makeup is that you get to spend a lot more time on the film before it starts,
Mhm.
before shooting actually. So if I'm coming in as in these days, what normally happens is that I'm going to have read the script, I'm going to discuss it with the director, meet them, possibly I'll have probably done a Zoom or something
Mhm.
with them before, and then turn up on the day, having learned all my lines and learn out what the blocking is going to be, and just do it on the day. Um, when you're doing prosthetic makeup, you get to meet and work with the guys who are doing your makeup more closely. I got to do actually even more because they even called me in just to do another live cast just so that they could get photographs. There was a journalist there, and I think he was possibly going to go into the Daily Mail. I don't know if that ever happened. So I got on really well with those guys. So,
Mhm.
friendships that still last today were formed during the filming of Hellraiser.
Mhm.
So I think that is different from your normal acting.
Yes, of course. And do you feel like as well, like, behind the mask, you can let go a little bit more than you would if you weren't in prosthetic makeup?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it is a very different technique. I remember when I was at drama school, one of the teachers, there were two lessons that I really relied on from drama school. One of which was the lady just said, "Okay, act anger with your nose. Now do it with your left ear or your right ear." And I just thought, this is crazy. How
But
how's
even,
this
yeah.
ever going to be able to do? No one's ever going to do this. But she was actually, it was actually spot on. And when it came to it, because it means that you put your emotion, suddenly you're not able to do all the normal things. Me waving my hands around like I normally do when I speak. Um, and the other one was a mime lesson where we were told to bring in a cardboard box that would fit over our head. We weren't allowed to cut it, we weren't allowed to decorate it. We had to make the cardboard box into a character we use it just using our body and movement, and that was obviously very helpful in terms of
Mhm.
Chatterer. I think the real thing with makeup like Chatterer is you just let the makeup do the work
Mhm.
in many senses.
Yes.
It's about, though having said this, as Clive said, it's not, you can't just stick anybody behind the prosthetic. You need an actor
Mhm.
who can make, who make it come to life. I mean, the symbiosis between the makeup artist and the actor of what we do, what we do. It is only you can only do it like this
Yes,
because without the actor, it's just a really interesting statue. And as an actor with all that makeup, then it changes. Somebody said that it was a very controlled performance too. I mean, of course, because of the restriction of the costume and the
hmm
makeup, there were very definite limitations. And weirdly, I think that gives the Chatterer a lot of power because he only moves when he needs to.
hmm
He's not, funny enough, in the second film in Hellbound, we only when he got eyes, there was a sequence of him running down the corridor chasing Imogen and Ashley, the actresses. And he loses power when you do that because then he comes closer to Freddy and
yes, yes, yes.
stalk and slash.
I get you.
And
Of
oddly enough, and there's no criticism of them whatsoever,
course.
but the stillness
Mhm.
actually is very, very powerful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, there is a letting go to an extent. You just concentrate purely on your body
Mhm.
and what that means in terms of stillness and power. It is
Brilliant.
remarkably effective.
Yeah. Uh, Like, yeah, that's fascinating. And like the sound of the Chatterer is also hilarious. How, like, how, like, this is, from Fate. For anybody that hasn't seen the movie, I Am Monsters, I really want you to go check it out. Or even better, I really want you to purchase it. It is a must see for fans of Hellraiser, fans who are just horror in general, and Clive Barker. But the connection between you, Nick, and the Chatterer, and how the Chatterer was born through all your operations, and
Mm.
it's a remarkable story, and you accidentally created one of the greatest horror films of all time with the way that you could only communicate. Because if you want to just elaborate a little bit on that, there, I'm talking shite.
Yeah, I think this. I think one of the things I didn't make clear in the film in I Am Monsters is because yes, the Chatterer was very definitely inspired by what I went through as a 19-year-old and the physical thing. When I spoke to, it wasn't until 3 months after it, and I was chatting with Clive about something totally different, and then he realised I hadn't made the connection. It wasn't until he said, "No, Nick, that whole image of the Chatterer with the pulled back lips and the exposed teeth, that is purely inspired by that conversation and the story that you had told me about the operation." And it's like I had not made that connection at all.
Mhm.
Because of course I think the conversation had happened a year or so before Hellraiser and the Hellbound Heart, the story in which, because of course the Chatterer is kind of described in the Hellbound Heart
Mhm.
as is the exposed teeth and so on. So yeah, that was a wonderful moment, and I think over the years it is. I've talked about this with other actors, just how lucky I am, and and Doug and Simon Bamford and Barbie Wilde and all the other
Mhm.
actors who get to create these um, creatures. That is a very fortunate thing for an actor to
Mhm.
still be talking about something 36, 37 years later about your work and meeting young people who were not born when
Yes.
we made the
Yeah.
film. And that's really fascinating as well as the fact that, as you say, it's really stood the test of time, and it's something I'm really grateful for.
Hmm.
That just by serendipity,
Yeah.
that this is, that this is, but also why it is so personal to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's. I couldn't agree more. And as I said there, Nick, as well, that this is the like the Cenobites and other monsters, like even Freddy and Jason, they are like a new generation that are,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
replacing the old. Like as I say, no disrespect to the old school monsters, I still love all that as well. But I sort of started Movie Hooker by sitting on my ass in a video shop when I was a kid, reading the back of like Hellraiser, and just being so blown away by it, by the darkness of it all. I became obsessed with horror because of Hellraiser. And if it wasn't for Hellraiser, then Movie Hooker would not exist. And that is just 100% the truth. If it wasn't for the likes of Hellraiser, and like it played a huge part in just me seeking out sort of darker cinema, and that's the route that I wanted to go down, you know, and worked 17 years in movie stores, just promoted horror movies, and then started Movie Hooker to keep that going. So, as I say, it's an you have no idea how much of an honor it is to talk to you, man. And
Oh,
I think we had a wonderful little chat today.
absolutely, absolutely. Did you hit the record button? Was this actually being recorded? I
Yes,
wasn't
I'm
sure about
recording.
that.
Yeah,
You are.
I am.
Sorry, I just had that wonderful, horrible moment. And I just thought I don't remember having to do the thing of ring. Sorry, complete panic on my part.
You're
We should be
okay. No, no
completely
worries
raw,
at all.
obviously.
It's all
But
recorded.
that's lovely to hear, Gary.
Mhm.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, that is really lovely to hear that, and as I say, I'm very grateful when people tell me things like this because it is such an honor
Mhm.
to hear that, um, and that it does still inspire people
Mhm.
these days. That people still want to hear about it. Including your brother Keith.
Oh, I know.
Um,
Yeah, we had all like the little Cenobite like action figures, and you know, like
oh, they're great.
everything. So yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah. So thank
Yeah,
you very,
yeah.
very much, Nick, for like
It's my
taking the
pleasure.
time, man, to chat to me.
And you too, sir. Thank you for
Hey,
having me on the show.
hey, listen. Wish you all the best, and I can't wait to read about your short stories. I'm sure I can hear something through Greg anyway. So, man,
Oh yes, yeah. That were or just follow my social media. And also, while we're here, I should just give shout outs to some other films that are happening.
okay,
Because weirdly, I Am Monsters is coming out, and there are three other films coming out within a month of the release of I Am Monsters as well. Advent, um, I believe, is going online today. Streaming platforms. It premiered at Fright Fest Halloween, directed by Anthony Errol Hales. That's been getting very strong reviews, and actually watched it the other day, and it's a
mhm,
really good central
awesome.
performance. That's a starring role in that one. I've got a couple of cameos in He Sees You When You're Sleeping, directed by Charlie Steeds. That went online on the 11th of November in America for any American viewers. And then, of course, just coming up is How to Kill Monsters,
Okay,
directed by Stuart Spark, who was my assistant director on I Am Monsters and is a huge part of the creation of I Am Monsters. That is a wonderful, and again, I mean, I think it's won 20 awards on its festival circuit,
wow.
and
Okay,
that's coming out streaming at the beginning of December. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
that's
That
a yeah.
again is I've got
So
a
that's
wonderful cameo in that one. Really
Advent.
enjoyed it.
Advent. I see you when you're sleeping, and how to kill
Yes,
monsters.
yes,
Yes,
those
yes.
three.
Right. Okay, noted, man. Okay, Nick, thank you so much,
Gary,
man.
thank you very much indeed.
Have a great day, dude. Take it easy. Bye bye.
Take
Lovely
care.
chatting. Bye
Bye.
bye.
You too. You too.